it's ultimately about identifying things that people are passionate about, and allowing them the opportunity to take ownership of those things that they're passionate about. It could be varying levels of ownership, but making that person feel like they can run with something.
Welcome back to the 200 section, where we share honest perspectives from the middle of a growing company. In our last conversation, we talked about that gradual transformation that happens where you go from feeling like you're drinking from a fire hose to finally finding your footing. We shared stories about earning confidence and starting to meaningfully contribute to the company's direction. Today's conversation is about those moments when someone else believed in us before we believed in ourselves. About how mentorship, true mentorship, doesn't just show up as gentle guidance, but also as someone handing you a responsibility that feels way too big. Max shared a story in our last episode about Nico calling him to lead a major account for the first time, and it got us both thinking about how the best mentors don't just give advice. They give you opportunities that stretch you, sometimes to the point where you wonder if they've lost their dang minds. These are the moments that shape us, when someone else sees potential in us that we don't yet see in ourselves, and trusts us with something that terrifies us. This kind of mentorship, the kind that pushes you out of your comfort zone, becomes the foundation for everything that comes after. Hi, Max.
We're back, Claudia. I'm going to make the joke every single time that I can't believe we're doing another one.
That's why I prepared myself with literally a two-word opener today. I was like, I know if I just come in and say, Hi, Max, he is inevitably going to riff on the same joke we've recycled every episode thus far. I think it's going to happen until someone tells us not to anymore because we are committed to the bit.
That's right. I was going to say at some point it'll not be funny to us. So when that moment hits, we'll stop. But we haven't hit it yet.
No, no, not yet. It's still got it's zest what it
That's right.
brings to the start of this podcast. Yeah.
That's right.
Awesome. I think so today's episode sort of stems very naturally out of what we were talking about on the last episode about what it feels like to go from feeling overwhelmed and brand new to suddenly feeling like you kind of know what's going on and you know what you're doing. I mean, confidence is a very strong word. It
Hmm.
ebbs and flows for sure. But just sort of the gradual transformation that happens. And I think towards the end of the last episode was when you dropped just a few like quick sentences about a story with Nico asking you to do something, and that being one of like your first indicators that you were arriving in the 200 section, if you will. And so that kind of inspired us to think about like positive mentorship and the great leadership that we have at this company that we're so grateful for. So, the topic of today's episode is all about that, exactly that, what it means to receive good mentorship and then pass that along in as many ways as we can. So, it's going to be a little bit mushy gushy, which
Your
is
favorite.
is my vibe.
Yeah,
Sometimes not so much yours, but I think we can make it work either way.
absolutely. I'll do my best. I'll do my best to get into the mushy gushy mood for you.
Sounds good. Fair enough. Um, yeah, so let's start, I think, from the place that we left off with in the last episode, since that is such a good specific moment of when somebody handed you a responsibility that felt way too big, like something you weren't ready for at all. And just dig in a little bit deeper, get a little bit more vulnerable and raw this time. Tell us about your internal dialogue and how did you, prepare, react, all of the things.
Yeah, so you mentioned that moment with Nico, um and that truly, even reflecting on it further, that truly was that first moment where it was okay, some responsibilities, some trust had been given. I'm sure there'll be a trust counter somewhere
Pull it
in
up,
the
producer
post
Jake.
edit. That's right. That's right. Um, but that was truly the first moment I had felt that. And I think to go a layer deeper and more vulnerable, it wasn't just the fear of that opportunity and wanting to do well, but not wanting to fail, because it's not just, it felt as if it wasn't just me and myself on the line with this relationship and in this job. Now it was someone else who was backing me, putting their faith in me. So that I think was the most intimidating thing about that moment for me. But I think it also showed how powerful it really is to have someone believe in you like that in a moment that felt so early on in my Proformex career. You just really want to take it and run with it and just ultimately make that person proud and feel good that they entrusted you with this power and opportunity. So in reflecting on that and that specific moment, that internal dialogue, that was everything that was going through my head. I'm sure there were a multitude of other things, but ultimately not wanting to fail and then taking a step further and feeling how powerful it was to have someone believe in me like that. Um, that was what was going through my head. And I know we talked about my moment, Claudia, but now I get to turn the tables on you, favorite part of this whole thing. Um, Same question to you. What was that specific moment like giving you responsibility that felt way too big? What was the internal dialogue from your side of the fence on the marketing side of things?
Yeah, I think it's totally fair always to put it back on me. It's not fair if this whole podcast is just me badgering you with questions and unexpected follow-up questions like I often tend to do. So more than happy to pull my weight here a little bit. I think for me, probably the one that stands out the most is when we had determined that the marketing team needed to grow by a person. And our CMO, David Morris, was like, oh, and by the way, this person, you'll be managing them. So get ready. And at that point, we talked last episode rather, about getting to a place where you start to feel a little bit confident and comfortable and like secure in what you're doing and the value you're providing. And that was how I felt at that point about being an individual contributor. So then to have this news dropped on me of, oh, hey, by the way, you might not feel like you're ready, but I think that you are or can get ready very quickly. You're going to manage somebody. And so it's a lot of the same stuff that you were kind of talking about with Nico asking you to take over a big customer account. It's knowing then that it's not just my own sort of reputation and job on the line. Like now I am responsible for fostering the growth and development of another person, and helping them understand their place in the business, our place in the market. There's lots of layers to things that need to be passed forward. Um, and it's totally scary and definitely something I feel like I'm still adjusting to today, even, a couple of years later. Um, but I think the universe sort of like pushes us into opportunities like this right when you do start to feel confident and comfortable, just so that we all avoid complacency. Nobody wants to stay stagnant for too long. So it ends up being a good thing. And it's like you had mentioned too, like having somebody believe in you and tell you, I know that you don't think you can do this, but I believe that you can, makes such a big difference. And it doesn't take away any of those fears of failure or the nerves or anything like that. It's just kind of the other side of the coin. So there's like a yin and yang of the situation, if you will.
100%. I think that's the inner monologue, the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other, that you're always trying to rationalize of the imposter syndrome. Why am I here? Why am I put in this position? Just started to get right or get down what I thought I was here to do. And then another challenge is thrown in your lap. And I think that's one of the things that's been so interesting about Proformex and how we operate is we do stretch ourselves. We are given opportunities to grow and to learn, and push ourselves beyond what we even think our capabilities are. And so those moments that have presented themselves for you and me over and over again, it's fun to see us come out on the other side and be able to reflect on it.
It is for sure. And we do, I just want to, shout out the supportive environment that we work in. I leaned very heavily on some of the leaders at Proformex for advice as I was, entering this transition in my career. Um, we'll give Nico another shout out. He was definitely somebody I reached out to, like, hey, what do I do? Help me, please. Um, but between that and being given like book recommendations for specific books that would help, a young developing leader, it was just awesome to get that sort of feedback and help as the transition progressed. So just want to give a huge shout out to the team there. And I think part of what makes working on our team so great is we are not a place where people are just given work to do for the sake of filling their hours. I think projects and tasks are assigned with intention. Sometimes it's not easy to see that right away being younger in your career. So for you, like when did you realize the stuff that people were asking you to do and to take ownership of? It wasn't just because, oh, somebody needs to do it, so let's just give it to Max. Like, when did you realize it was more for the sake of investing in your development?
It's funny, I don't know if I ever looked at any particular moment as, oh, they're investing in me. This wasn't just extra work. I think a lot of times my first instinct is to go to, uh, what? Why am I getting this extra work? Versus this is something to help me grow and learn and understand things. And so I think ultimately this question and being asked this is a good reminder to take a more critical eye when given opportunities and things and additional responsibilities, and think about how I can use the opportunity to develop and hone a skill that needs sharpening. One thing that comes to mind is being given larger accounts, more sophisticated accounts, and things like that, is being able to grow and understand and learn inside of the insurance industry. I think one of the things that is super interesting about Performance is we've talked a lot about group of outsiders and trying to understand the industry and grow and build while growing and building a business. But having folks like Mike, who founded the company, and clinging and learning from all of his wealth of knowledge from 10, 20, 30 years in the business, and starting Performex with a dream and a vision that is still very much alive today. Also, Kevin Kelly, how can we not shout out Kevin Kelly? 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the business and that wealth of experience as well, and being able to grow and understand and learn the industry and within the business as well. So, is there a particular moment when I realized, hey, this isn't just extra work? I think that came a little bit later on, that, hey, this is actually investing in my development. This is the natural next step for you to take with the job you're currently doing. But being able to have those moments where it's just continuously learning and being able to take a step back and have a little bit more critical eye when given those additional responsibilities, and thinking through how I can use the opportunity to develop and hone a skill um, that may or may not need lots of sharpening. I think that's sort of my answer there. I don't think there's any one particular moment. It's sort of a realization in the midst of the process. I don't know if you feel similarly, or you do a better job of taking a step back and seeing, okay, this is my moment, the next step I need to take.
I think I see a lot of where you're coming from with it maybe not being, the forefront of my mind all the time. But I do just want to quickly hit on something that stood out to me in your answer is just what I think is so embedded in the Performex ethos is that even if somebody is not directly telling you, hey, I'm helping you do this for your development, and in the moment you're not receiving something as like, oh, this is making me stronger as a person, as a professional, everybody on the team is always so willing to like help somebody else learn a little bit more. Like you mentioned, both Mike and Kevin being the insurance industry experts, both of them are always available for any question at any time. We've had countless lunch and learns with the two of them, educating us outsiders. Um, and that's been great. And I think that that's just something that runs across the company. Everybody is always willing to help each other out. Um, and just like foster development that way. Like nobody's, being super intentional about that in those moments, but it is kind of just happening in the background. So I think that that's really cool. But for me, is in terms of thinking about my own development, I probably think too much about it. But I will say, I working with David, our CMO, he's the boss that I've had for the majority of my career since leaving college. And he is somebody who really sets the context for projects and things like that to say, like, hey, I'm going to have you work on this thing. I think it will benefit you in XYZ. Like you've got this certain skill that needs refining or development, and this is going to push you to do that. And you might be uncomfortable, but I'm here to support you, and I believe in you, and I know you can do it. So I think that that helps me just sort of like by default be in a mindset where I am looking for where those opportunities are, thinking about how it's impacting my development, and then also thinking about how, you know, when I'm asking somebody for help on something like, or if we've got, our summer interns and I'm asking them to help us with a project, like how can I then set the right context for them to be in that mindset too? Um, and I just think everybody wins that way.
Totally. No, it's something that I think is development with projects that are being given or opportunities that are being given, is that always front of mind? Not necessarily, but if you are able to, take that step back and think through all that's going on and how this can be an opportunity, typically you'll find some sort of way, uh, at least in the middle of it, if not at the beginning or at the end, that, okay, this is someone actually investing in my development, in your development, uh, to make it something that you can take and run with for sure.
Yeah, it's rare that you can't find a way to connect some sort of meaning to a task or project that you've been assigned, at least for us here at Proformex, which has been really nice. So fully agree with you there. So narrowing in a bit more specifically on mentors and maybe advice that we have gotten from them over the years, is there a piece of advice that you have felt was most valuable when it comes to taking on, responsibilities that feel too big or like assignments that you don't feel ready for? Like what's the best thing that somebody told you in a moment like that?
Yeah, I forget who exactly said it.
Ooh, I wonder if I can guess as you go through
It
your story.
I know it was probably Kelly, our VP of Sales and Carrier Partnerships
And
here,
certified hype guy. Like if you need
certified hype
somebody to
guy.
support you and make you feel better, you go to Kelly
That's
100%.
right, 100%. Um, but it was that everyone everyone has to start somewhere. Ultimately, the people who appear to have it all together, seem to know everything, have every answer, they needed a break to get to that point. They needed a moment. A lot of times we only see or hear um, the the success when a person reaches a mountaintop, or you hear the story of I failed at this thing, but then it ultimately led to this $10 million idea, $1 billion idea, or something like that. You only hear the failures and the things that they want you to hear about. So I think hearing that of everyone has to start somewhere, most people don't have it all figured out. Um, that's been the biggest piece of advice and help put me in the right frame of mind of these people also had someone believe in them. They ultimately had someone that pushed them, helped elevate them. And it sort of helped me remember that whatever challenge that I'm probably facing or have a question on or things like that, others did too. So it also allows for the fear of failure to wash away and be able and feel comfortable with asking that question, saying, "Hey, you've probably faced this similar situation, similar to how you said, reached out to Nico, who had been there, done that with some stuff. Same idea of being facing this challenge. How do I present this? How do I go about talking to this particular customer or person about this thing? Oh, you know what? Kelly's probably faced this. Amanda's probably faced this or a similar type of situation. Great. Can go there, use that as a resource and build that skill for myself. So, yeah, ultimately, everyone has to start somewhere. Even the people who look and sound like they haven't figured out, they probably haven't figured out better than me, but they still are figuring things out as well. So I think that ultimately, yeah, that's the biggest piece of advice that's stuck with me through the years is understanding that and going in with that mindset of everyone else they've been there. They started somewhere as well. Just ask. Do your best to figure it out and work your way through it, and then ask. Ask for help, ask for questions. Ask questions to people.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that it's such a good reminder that you're not navigating any challenge by yourself. Like there are people that you can lean on and examples you can look to of people who have surely faced similar feelings of self-doubt or not knowing what they're doing or feeling like they're an imposter. Like those are pretty universal feelings. I would be shocked to meet a person who avoids those kinds of feelings. I would be asking them a lot of questions about how. I would love to learn from somebody like that, but I'm just not sure that
Absolutely.
person exists. So, yeah, the everyone has to start somewhere sounds really simple, but it's a very powerful reminder. There's a lot packed into that. I really like that one. Um, I think on my side, something that I hear a lot, it's a piece of advice that David, once again, I'm going to bring him up. Can you tell we talk all the time or no? Um,
Just a little bit.
just a little bit. Yeah. He is always reminding me that if I'm feeling apprehensive about taking on something or something that I've worked on, if I feel like I'm not doing a good job or I'm failing or I should be better at something than I am, he loves to remind me that nobody's asking me to work on things because they like me as a person. That might also be true, but I wouldn't have a seat at the table just for the fact that I like, my coworkers and I'm nice to everybody, like there's a reason and there's value that I can contribute in specific, projects and tasks and like not to forget that other people recognize that and it's the only reason they pull me into projects. So I think having that sort of reassurance that um again, they might not be directly going full coach mode like we got this team, I believe in you, but that's sort of like the underlying theme, right? Of like nobody asks you to do something just because it they're like for no reason. There's
Mhm.
always something to be said there. So that is something that really anchors me. And if I'm being fully honest, it was a reminder I got like literally this morning. So this is very fresh, very top of mind because I was having some of these feelings about a specific thing I'm feeling stuck on right now. And that was, one of the first lines of defense that David likes to pull out is just like, well, I wouldn't have asked you to do this if I didn't think you could. So suck up, suck it up.
I
you
love it.
you'll be good. Awesome. So I think in talking about all of the positive mentorship we've received, I know for me, something I like to think about is how I can pay it all forward because I feel tremendously grateful to be around, a full team of people who is so willing to invest in each other's development. So I guess like how do you think about that? How do you think about recognizing potential in sort of like newer team members? Or I know we have, our annual summer internship program. Like how has our experience benefiting from some of that positive mentorship informed the way that you approach opportunities where you yourself could be considered a mentor?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately about identifying things that people are passionate about, and allowing them the opportunity to take ownership of those things that they're passionate about. It could be varying levels of ownership, but making that person feel like they can run with something. And again, in particular, something that they love or have expressed an interest in. So, for example, when I first started, one of the projects that I felt called to, I guess is the proper phrase there, which sounds funny, but helping to revamp our internal health score metrics for an account, right? So based on this, how often are they in the application? How often are they emailing? How often are they calling or reaching out or things like that? Put all that into I guess you could call it an algorithm and spit out a score to be able to help this growing company with hundreds and hundreds of customers. Where should time and attention be focused? More so than it currently is. And so I think Nico, at that point working under Nico, he saw that and really let me run with it. Obviously, there was guidance in terms of, hey, this thing, based on my experience and my work, I think this thing should have a little bit more weight. And if we see a drop off in activity in the application, we should rate that, more highly. That this could be an issue. Or actually, if we see over a certain amount of emails or calls, yes, they might be engaging with the customer success manager, but probably means there's an issue there because they keep reaching out. So little nuggets and things like that to help guide what I was passionate about and interested in implementing and putting into place. I was able to do that and run with it. Now, that has become a lot more sophisticated and enhanced by smarter people than I from 5 years ago. But again, it was something I was passionate about. I was given ownership, able to make it my own. I think something similar of even, a little bit more modern in terms of working under Kelly and some of that stuff of have an idea in terms of how I want to go about outreach or telling the Proformex story and telling and pitching to customers and things like that, and being able to run with it, create some slides, work with marketing to create some collateral or other pieces, or work cross-functionally to bring in some data elements that Mitch and Luke on our team are working on and craft that into a story. Now, it's not something that, again, ownership with guidance, it's not something that I just throw together and it gets launched into the ecosystem or anything like that. But being able to recognize it was something I was interested in, passionate about, and being able to push that forward and take some ownership of it, that I think has shaped how I view recognizing potential and developing it in others is what are people passionate about? How can I then allow them the opportunity to take ownership of it and then provide some guidance with, okay, I have a tiny bit of experience. I know a little bit about this, that, and the other thing. Sprinkle that in to help provide ultimately the best product or thing possible afterwards.
Yeah. I love how like rewarding it is to get to a point where you can think like that on behalf of others and sort of pay forward all the good like fostering you've gotten, to this
Mhm.
point in your career. Like I feel exactly that same way. And I think the biggest lesson I feel that I've learned about positive mentorship in my time here is that a good mentor isn't just somebody who has the answers and has sort of like the experience and the skills that you want to have to set yourself up for success for what you think your future career path will look like. It's the person who is willing to be vulnerable and honest enough with themselves and with you that if you bring something to this mentor and you say, "Hey, I want help with this thing," and it's not something that's in their wheelhouse, they'll say, "You know what? That's okay. I'm not the best person to ask, but I will find you something. I will find you a
Mhm.
resource. I will find you a person. I will connect you to whoever it is you need to further your development of this very specific thing." And that I feel for me, I talked about transitioning into a manager type role. Like that relieved so much pressure from me of like, I don't have to have all the answers all the time for the person or people, who report to me or need my support. I can just be, the connective tissue that puts them in the place where they need to be to get the experience, the insights, the lessons, the opportunities. So it was very liberating, but it's also, I think, an important thing that managers and leaders should be mindful of. And that's totally the case across the board here at Proformex, which we're very lucky to benefit from.
Yeah, the ability to be vulnerable enough or have enough humility to be able to say, you know what, I don't know, but I know someone that does is a powerful thing.
It is. Yeah, there's no shame in saying the words, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'll find out. That's the key. I
that's the
don't
key.
know and throw your hands up is one thing, but I don't know and
Right.
I'll find out or connect you with someone that does. That that is powerful.
That totally is. Awesome. Well, this episode for all of our coworkers listening, I feel like you just need some heart hands here. I feel like we talked a lot, name dropped a ton of specific people on the team who have positively mentored us in one way or another. So I thought it was super fun to reflect on that. Gives me a little bit of energy to get through the rest of my week. I mentioned before we started recording, I'm going to be out of town for a week, so this is a good high to ride out for the rest of the week. I'm glad we had this conversation. I don't know about you.
Glad I could help you out right into the sunset for the 4th of July holiday. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I appreciate that. And I think I don't know that we have a topic picked for episode 5, so we will leave our listeners with that suspense as they head into their own holiday celebrations. But we will be back. That is one thing we can guarantee. We will always be back for more insights from the middle of the action. So see you next time on a future episode of the 200 section.